For every life you tried to save, you gambled millions more.
What's going on, y'all? It's Liam Crowley from Screen Rant, and I am joined today by the entity himself, Esai Morales from Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Esai, it's truly an honor. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
No, it's an honor for me as well. Thank you, Liam.
Absolutely. Dead Reckoning Part 1, when that came out 2 summers ago, it was really cool to get introduced to your character of Gabriel, because Gabriel is someone who has ties to the very beginning of Mission Impossible, but our first time meeting him on screen wasn't until Dead Reckoning Part 1. So when you're getting approached for this role and you're getting pitched this role, how is it pitched to you, considering the fact that we're first meeting him in the 7th installment, but we know he exists as far back as the first movie?
Well, basically, this is a mysterious character. You know, he's someone that we don't know too much about, but he knows a lot more about Ethan than probably Ethan would want to know. So we have an idea. We do these things in kind of broad strokes, and then as you shoot, you taper it into the needs of the film. You know, I mean, this is entertainment as well. So we have to make sure it keeps moving and not give away too much detail, because you have to have something that makes you very unnerved about this character, about any villain. There has to be a danger, and the danger is, what does he know? What is he capable of? What does this mean to my team, the people I love, and by extension, the world? What is this man capable of? So those are the kind of things we're looking at. I mean, pitched to me as a character, the strange thing is that it was during the pandemic, and I was working on another film. And I had another Mission Impossible of sorts. I had to finish 8 days on that film in order to be free to get training. So, and that was it was a challenge, because during the pandemic, nobody knew I would be back back to work. So people were making deals, hoping that we could finish one thing before I had to leave for another. So, yeah, I mean, these characters kind of evolve as well, because it's wherever the story takes you. That's the interesting thing. It's full of twists and turns. So sometimes the filmmakers, Tom and McHugh, will say, you know what? This is fascinating. Let's go with this. And that's why you're not married to, it's not Shakespeare. You're not dealing with a character that's been around, for hundreds of years. You're dealing with a character that has to suit the purpose of the film, which is to terrify the main character and the audiences.
Yeah, that's something I love about the Mission movies, is it does feel like it marches to the beat of how audiences respond to things, but also how things are responding on set in real time. I'm glad you brought up the pandemic, because both of your installments in the Mission Impossible franchise, Dead Reckoning Part 1 and The Final Reckoning, were impacted by crazy production hurdles. The first movie, of course, the pandemic, having production shut down, is obviously the very famous audio of Tom rallying the troops to make sure everything can get done and make sure Hollywood can continue to operate. Because I know all eyes were on Dead Reckoning Part 1 as the barometer for, can we still shoot given the new restrictions? And it's such an achievement that it was able to be made the way it was. But what I'm referencing with The Final Reckoning is the actor's strike and the director's strike and what was going on in Hollywood. So you have these two giant hurdles that impact these films. How do you maintain morale? How does morale stay high when you're constantly being hit with these big obstacles?
Tom and McHugh and the entire cast and crew are dedicated to keeping this craft alive, to making it interesting, to making sure that every single inch of that frame, every little millimeter, is filled with things that are moving the story forward. That if you watch the movie 2 or 3 times, you go, wait, oh, look at that. I didn't notice that the first time. That's the kind of, attentions to detail these guys have, these men and women that are the best in their class. That's why this franchise is usually extremely successful. We did have issues during the pandemic and the strike. It did not help us also to lose huge screens to other very popular films. But now it's everything's open for this one to be a massive success. And it should be. This is the culmination of decades of work, decades of these characters, the people that you've grown to love, and care about, whether it's Benji or Luther, and the wonderful women, the leading ladies that we have in this and past ones. I mean, it's a wonderful way to look back through time that most films don't have that ability to do. You'll see, the famous drop in. I mean, all the way on, you'll see this character evolve, and I'm trying to put an end to that.
Obviously, Dead Reckoning Part 1 was referenced as a Part 1. And at some point in the past 2 years, we shifted it over. Instead of Dead Reckoning Part 2, we're calling it The Final Reckoning. You mentioned how the story that McHugh and Tom are able to develop over the course of time can kind of evolve during production. The Gabriel that was pitched to you, how much of that has carried through to The Final Reckoning, and how much of that has kind of evolved as productions have gone on?
Initially, the character was more of a Luddite. Was more anti-tech, and that evolved. But that's all I have to. I really don't want to betray the filmmaker's process either, or it's their choice how much to speak about it. And that's the thing, when you do these things, you want to promote a film, but you don't want to give it away. You want to entice people. I will say that I had to come to terms with my own mortality on a daily basis for a long time to get that final sequence, or a certain sequence, in there. I had to literally ask, if anything happens to me, will you make sure my family's taken care of? So yeah, it got serious.
Okay, well, see, that's the type of hype I like to hear. Like, I don't want any spoilers. I want to be very clear about that.
There's a sequence that I watched, and I knew the gentleman was alive. You know who I'm talking about. You're kind of emulating him with the black T-shirt, the hair. You're kind of like your own version of Ethan Hunt, right? Is that? Come on, am I making?
I had bangs. I had bangs 2 months ago, and then a trailer for Final Reckoning came out, and I was like, maybe we put it back a little bit.
I can sense you were a true fan. You were a true, devotee, and I was watching the playback. I was watching something that I knew the ending to, but I was so freaked out. I was like, come on, because that he's still alive makes it alive, but he seems crazy. These things are absolutely insane. And if it weren't for his experience and the fact that he would do some of these things anyway, you know what I mean? Because I'll tell you this thing. I said to him once, we're on the train in Norway, like looking like the Austrian Alps, right? And we're going back to one. And I'm looking at this guy who I've known since he was 18, but we hadn't really ever worked together. We haven't seen, I'm 19 or so. Yeah, we met at 19. And I'm looking at him going, hey, how is he still alive, right? Because the odds are really stacked against you after all. I mean, this is decades of his own stunts, right? And then I said, Tom, what do you do for vacation? And he goes, this is my vacation. He's doing the things he would do, skydiving and paragliding, whatever it is, boats, planes. I mean, he is living the life most of us would love to lead. If, most young men, at least, if not young women that are extremely adventurous. So I got to give him, that. While I don't, while he is his own person and I'm not, going, oh my God, I wish I could live that exact life. You have to respect what he's accomplished, what McHugh has accomplished, what they as a team have accomplished. My hat's off to them, and I'm just grateful to be involved. And I just want to do my best to not only perform, but also let people know, show up, go have a good time. This is history. There's a historical scene in this. As a matter of fact, they gave me a gift. Tom and McHugh gave me a very, very special gift, something that's very hard to find. And on the note, Tom wrote, thanks. We made one for the ages, basically the sequence I was talking about, for the ages. So figure it out. When you watch it, you let me know if I was exaggerating or not.
Yeah, I think I've heard, and I don't want a clear answer here, just a yes or no, that there's a sequence in this movie that has not been shown in the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay, because the motorcycle from Dead Reckoning Part 1, awesome, unbelievable in the moment, but the whole movie, I'm like, I know we're getting there. So I love the fact.
Yeah.
I love the fact that this time we're going on a road that I don't know. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I want to have that pure experience. I'll wrap with this. We obviously mentioned before we started recording, you got a busy, couple of projects coming out. Final Reckoning is obviously, hot on the heels, coming out later this month. But War Machine, this new movie I see with a stacked cast. I see Alan Richardson there. I see that it's ground and pound, but it's also some sci-fi elements. What can you tell us about War Machine?
It was one of the most fun reads when I read the script. Dennis Quaid, another wonderful actor, Alan Richardson, a mountain of a man and performer, and the supporting cast of a lot of folks, that I hadn't met before but grew to love. Dennis and I play the two senior officers in the RASP, the Rangers, school selection process, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so grueling. And I'm just a bulldog. I'm the first sergeant. So I'm the guy just letting them know, you're about to embark, on the hardest selection process in the world. So I love digging deep into the archetype military guy that we've seen before, but I've made my own based on my own family member who's no longer with us, who was a very serious Marine. But, there's something special about soldiers. There's something special about people who are ready, willing, and able to give their lives for what matters to them, country, and mostly their fellow comrades, their fellow soldiers. So it's just a subculture. And then I'm grounded in the real world. Dennis and I in the military part of it, what happens to these soldiers afterwards, I kept saying, how are they getting out of this? How are they getting out of this? So it's going to be a fun ride. We had a great time in Australia. Again, Alan Richardson, his character is a war machine in itself, but then there's more. So that's all I'm going to tell you. It's sci-fi. It's in the vein of Predator. They're out there and then they come across something that's out of this world.
Amazing. Lots to look forward to, of course, but in the immediate future, we got Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning coming out Memorial Day weekend. Mr. Morales, thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley.
And now the fate of every living soul on earth is your responsibility.